Hello, Clementine9 here, another Topic of the Week video, and this week I'll be talking about Stranger Things, specifically about the romantic relationships of Jancy and Jonathan and Mike and Mileven. So, of course, spoilers for Season 1 and Season 2 of Stranger Things. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr user mephhius, and her topic is: your thoughts on the argument that both Jancy and Mileven's romantic development in Stranger Things felt forced. Would you have written them differently, or are you satisfied with how the Duffer brothers have handled these relationships so far? Now, I have heard criticisms about this, but they're a minority of the fandom from what I've seen. A lot of people are actually really happy that they got together. You know, the Jancy and Mileven pairings were very popular in Season 1, so of course them getting together in Season 2, a lot of people liked. And of course there's always going to be the people who don't like any kind of romantic stuff. There are people who simply ship rival ships, so they don't like the canon ships. You know, that stuff's always going to happen. But I have seen arguments against both of them that they are actually forced. But I don't even know where they're really coming from with that. Like, even looking at these arguments, a lot of the stuff, it's like, Jonathan and Jancy clearly had a lot of build-up in Season 1 to get together. You know, after all the, the troubles with Steve, and Steve being a bully and a douchebag, and then Jancy and Jonathan spending a lot of the season working together. A lot of people were surprised when they didn't get together at the end of Season 1, and then she went back to Steve. But of course, you always get that feeling like her relationship with Steve wasn't going to last. And then Season 2 comes along and proves exactly that. And ultimately, Jonathan and Jancy work together again for the season, and they actually get together with prodding from Murray, calling them out in their feelings, and the fact that, Jancy is constantly trying to convince herself that her relationship is with Steve, even though she's obviously has a lot of chemistry with Jonathan and actually really cares about him. So, there is a lot of build-up for Jonathan and Jancy to get together. If you're watching the show, like, I've seen people call it forced, like, oh, I came out of nowhere. Like, what show are you watching? Jonathan and Jancy were pretty much pushed, were, one of the forefront relationships in Season 1, so of course, them getting together in Season 2 isn't that much of a shocker. I mean, they had the development, they came to the realization of their feelings, and then they got together. I mean, I really don't know what people want. I mean, I was actually rather satisfied with, how it was handled. So, I mean, of course, there's always going to be someone with a dissenting opinion, and this is just always going to happen. But, looking into the criticism, some of it seems to feel like I don't want them to get together, so I'm just going to attack them for being, getting together. Some of it feels a bit like when people call out Katang and Avatar: The Last Airbender as being forced and out of nowhere, even though if you watch the entire show, it's 3 whole seasons of Aang and Katara getting together, and all the build-up over 3 seasons. There's always going to be someone who calls a pairing forced. And that's just the way things go. But really, I mean, even looking at the show in Season 1, with the development that Jancy and Jonathan got, in Season 2, and the development that Jancy and Jonathan got towards their relationship, you have like 2.5 seasons of building up to that. So, if it was something that hadn't been hinted at all, I mean, shoot, back in Season 1, you had people basically mistaking them for having feelings for each other and being a couple. Where, like, that one woman who was, who basically called Jonathan out for having feelings for Jancy. And then, saying this to Jancy. It's like, this stuff was already there. Like, there's build-up to it. Like, if this was something that had no build-up, if they didn't interact in Season 1, and then in Season 2 they automatically just get together, that would be forced. That would be bad writing. But what happened in the show was actually built up, and I'm rather satisfied with that. Now for Mike and Mileven are arguably one of, like, the premier relationships in the show, just because of how, like, utterly ridiculous Mike is. And they're such an odd pairing at first when you really think about it, considering, what kind of a person Elle is, and being an experiment that was, like, she was not raised in a normal situation, being locked up with being deprived of a lot of proper social interaction, so she's really weird about stuff. But Mike and Eleven get really attached to each other in season 1. And you can see in season 2 that Mike is like heartbroken about her being gone. He's constantly like radioing, for her and trying to contact her for an entire year. And then Elle is listening to these conversations. It's practically star-crossed lovers setting up. So, and they only get together actually at the end of season 2 when they go to the dance together. So you have 2 seasons of building up their relationships for them to get together, and the most they do is kiss. That's it. They're kids. There's nothing inappropriate going on there. They like each other, they kiss, and they're, probably going to see them dating. So I don't get why people would call them forced. It's very clear that there's romantic feelings in season 1. It's very clear that Mike and Elle really care about each other in season 2. So them getting together, making good on a promise from season 1, how is that forced? Now, I've seen a lot, okay, I say a lot, but there seems to be a bit of a vocal minority that I've seen on Tumblr against Mike and Eleven. But some of the criticisms just seem really weird, apart from calling them forced. I've even seen some people say that Mike sexually assaulted Elle. And I'm just like, what show are you watching? First off, their feelings are obviously completely mutual. And again, the most they do is kiss. I mean, yes, this is Tumblr, and to some people, a guy simply looking at a girl is considered sexual assault. But when these two are making like goo goo gaga eyes at each other and they're dancing in these big romantic moment, like how I can't even say anything about the whole sexual assault accusation, because it seems like there's some people who just hate them as a pairing and hate that they're together, even though they're pretty much the primary like romantic relationship in the show. I mean, that stuff is just totally ridiculous. And that's not even something to really pay attention to. But in terms of calling them forced, I'd argue they may have even more, build up to them getting together than Jonathan and Nancy. And it takes them, longer in the seasons to get together. Because they get together, like, pretty much at the end of season 2. So, how is 2 seasons worth of build-up forced? Again, I'm sure that a lot of this comes from people who simply don't like the pairings and will say anything negative about them if they can. But I've tried looking into these, these criticisms, and none of it really feels genuine, Like, I'm very critical. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm very critical of a lot of stuff, a lot of writing. But I don't really see anything wrong here. I mean, are there things that could have been done better? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course. But Stranger Things seasons 1 and 2 do a lot of things right. More right than they do wrong. Like episode 7 of season 2. But, and one of the things that they did right is these romantic, relationships. I mean, it's like, if you looked at, Joyce and Hopper, if they got together in season 3, would people call that forced after all the implied relationships between them in the past and all the, the obvious, chemistry that they have? Oh, sure, there's going to be someone. Because someone's always going to say this. I honestly don't think these criticisms are really based on stuff from the show. A lot of this feels like stuff that's pretty much done to just criticize the pairings because they don't like it. And because if I'm someone here who's really critical of a lot of stuff, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't really have a problem with this. In fact, I actually really like it. I'm satisfied with how they got together. Then, I mean, I don't really think that there's much of a problem with it. And yeah, I think that's about it. Because, I mean, looking into it, I looked into the criticisms. I didn't just, skim over this. I mean, I actually have seen these criticisms. And I just feel like a lot of this stuff isn't really... A lot of this stuff just isn't right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week's topic. If you want to submit a topic to me, you can simply comment below on YouTube, or if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and do topic : and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules that I'll be posting down below. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. And if there's anything else you want me to talk about, and if any other topics, anything else you want to talk about with this topic, if you have any opinions on Nancy and Jonathan's or Mike and Levin's relationship, please comment below. And thank you for watching.